There needs to be a ceasefire. It's not a good situation that people are killing one another. There are people who are very concerned that an unconditional ceasefire at this stage will not solve the problem. And of course, in many ways, of course it won't solve the problem. Not that it should be an excuse not to have a ceasefire, but it's a challenge to do all the other things that are necessary along with the ceasefire. So there cannot be lasting peace without justice. And there can't be justice without tolerance. And there can't be tolerance without compromise and without mercy and without reconciliation. So what is that going to mean practically? Well, I mean, let's perhaps before we go to that, let me just say also, no justice is real justice if it's founded on uncontrolled anger. As the previous speaker just said, anger is one of those vices we need to control. Nor can real justice be achieved by a desire for revenge. Accountability and revenge are not the same thing. If you say there has to be accountability, fine, but it needs to be a judicious, intelligent accountability with the goal of reconciliation and a better future. If it's simply for the purpose of feeling better because someone you're angry at comes to a sticky end, that's not justice, that's revenge. And it has no real place in accountability is good, it should be based on due process. The rights of innocent people need to be upheld. Repentance should lead to mercy and reconciliation. And triumphalism, triumphant victory that involves the humiliation of the defeated, has no place in true justice. So specifically in the situation we're in now, it goes without saying the shooting must stop. It goes without saying that the hostages must be released. It goes without saying even that the detainees, there are a lot of detainees in Israeli prisons. Hamas would say that is the reason why they're fighting. That's the reason they've taken hostages. I object to the strategy of taking hostages to free prisoners, but I sympathize with them in saying if there are people detained without trial, how do we even know that they're guilty of anything at all? So I would suggest, my personal view is, and I'm speaking for nobody but myself, but I am speaking, I think, authentically from my religious tradition, is that the detainees should be charged with crimes or released. Those detainees who have been convicted with inadequate due process, their cases should be reviewed. I was thinking on my drive out here, we should actually probably say that all detainees that have a political element to their detention should have their sentences reviewed by the international court. But it's not for Hamas to say that they're innocent, and it's not for Israel to say that they are definitively guilty. There has been lots of violence. There has to be accountability, but there should be accountability towards peace and reconciliation and justice, not accountability for the sake of revenge. There's another problem, which is the people who are neither hostages nor detainees, nor imprisoned, the people who have committed crimes and who are free and out there acting with a certain sense of impunity. If we're going to have accountability based on justice and based on a prospect of peace in the future, and a just peace in the future, then there has to be accountability for those people who've escaped accountability to this point. But as the somewhat successful experience in South Africa that was then copied in Canada in relations between the Canadian government and Indigenous people, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa did not focus on revenge and punishment. In fact, a lot of people who were accused of pretty serious things were released back once they had gone through the process of admitting that what they did had crossed the line of inhumanity. So that's the way I would ideally like to see things happen, is that there would be an accountability process in which revenge is excluded, and accountability is for the purpose of building peace and prosperity into the future, not for the purpose of revenge. And then again, the last thing, forward-looking. You know, in the business world where we're very practical and people don't think about ethics half as much as they should, a good business person looks forward. They don't spend their time listing the profit opportunities they missed 5 years ago. They don't matter. You focus on what your next decision is going to be, because that's the things you can control. And the same should be the case in politics. We should be looking forward to solving problems, not to extracting satisfaction of revenge from things that were disastrous, things that happened in the past. So I think, to be more specific, that those Jewish people who live in the biblical land of Israel, that is the land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, which is also from a Palestinian nationalist point of view, the original Palestine, certainly the Palestine that existed under the British Mandate from about 1922 when the eastern half became part of Jordan to 1948. Those people need to accept fundamentally that the principally Arabic-speaking and principally Muslim non-Jewish population of the area are not illegitimate residents of the land. They are the same residents of the land permitted, of God's land permitted by God, as the Jewish people. People in what was the mandatory Palestinian territory from the river to the sea, who do not consider themselves Jewish Israelis, need to accept also the Jewish presence in the land is not some kind of illegitimate colonial fiction that was generated as an excuse to dispossess them. I understand why they've come to believe that, but it's wrong. It's not true that that is the case. There's a deep historic connection between the Jewish people and that piece of land. It doesn't mean that it has to be exclusive. It doesn't mean that Jewish people have to be dominant and everybody else has to be a second-class citizen. But it also does not mean that this is some fundamentally Muslim land that can never be occupied except as tolerated minority by anyone else. Now, it's a small land, and we're talking about 13 million people, which is why I would really say the real agenda should be to get to grips with the economic, socioeconomic, and ecological economic problems. It's a dry land. It's a small land. There are 13 million people who want to live there. That's a challenge. It's not beyond the wit of man with the help of the wisdom of God to figure it out, but we need to figure it out. And personally, I'm not committed either to a two-state or a one-state solution. Whatever solution works. The point is there needs to be a solution, not killing. Not another 100 years of killing. And a solution means we've got to get together, have a constitutional convention of some kind. Maybe it's going to take some years. Maybe it's going to start off trying to figure out whether we're working to a two-state solution or a one-state solution. It's possible that you could have an interim two-state solution for 10, 20 years that eventually becomes a federated state. There's some compelling economic reasons, also demographic dispersion, why a two-state solution is actually very difficult to implement. There are cultural nationalism reasons why a two-state solution seems much more practical than a one-state solution. But a one-state solution in which one group dominates completely and the other group is a barely tolerated minority is not a solution. And a two-state solution in which those two states are permanently at war is also not a solution. The important point is not whether it's one or two state, but whether it be a solution. And a solution requires that we stop the hatred, accept that our goal is peace with justice, and get on with it. And our scriptures inspire us to do exactly that. We've just got to approach this in a spirit of self-control, self-sacrifice, humility before our Creator, and not with a sense of arrogance. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barkarski, for being with us here today and sharing your insight. Now I would like to invite Mr. Imran Bhatti, Imam of the Baitur Rahman Mosque.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I think I'm going to prefer to stand. I can use the burn calories more while standing. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the ever merciful. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us in this very important conversation. Speakers before me have shed light on how to tackle this situation, and the main thing that we all agreed upon is that the peace must prevail, and everlasting peace must be held, whether it's in Middle East or anywhere else around the world. And many other great points from the Sikh speaker, and from the Jewish speaker as well. And I want to thank you for coming to this program to bring the world's attention to the growing need for peace. Our global call is Voices for Peace. And this very program has been organized by the MDM Muslim Youth Association within the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at. So we thank you for standing in solidarity with the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at and for sending a strong message to our world leaders and elected officials around the world about the importance of establishing peace. Today we have different faith groups that have gathered to share their perspectives on the dire situation that we are in. As we have been listening to our panel leaders, you will have noticed that the underlying message for all the faith includes peace as a common theme. First and foremost, we also need to understand that even though this war is taking place in what is known as the Holy Land, this war is far from true religious teachings. As we study the Holy Quran, we look at in chapter 16, verses 91, that the atrocities and the acts of violence perpetrated by Hamas on October 7th is contrary to the true teachings of Islam. As it states that indeed Allah enjoys justice and the doing of good to others, and giving like kindred, and forbids indecency and manifest evil, and wrongful transgression. He admonishes you that you may take heed. Based on media reports, we have seen that Hamas had indiscriminately targeted innocent civilians on October 7th, and these actions of Hamas must be condemned in the strongest possible manner, that they have no relations to the beautiful teaching of Islam. And I have just summarized from the teachings of the Holy Quran as well. Furthermore, having said that, we have also seen that injustices committed by Israel has now exceeded all bounds and limits. According to reports, since October 7th, more than 25,000 Palestinians have died, killing over 10,000 children. We have also seen a continued attacks made on hospitals and schools and other service facilities. As you have seen in the video, which is also one of the channels of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, talk about how difficult it is to even provide basic necessity as food, water, shelter to those who have been affected by it. If an AK-47 bullet or an airstrike doesn't kill you, it is the conditions that are there right now in this cramped situation that eventually caught up and killed those innocent people. This is the height of injustice, and it is appealing to the entire reasonable world that such injustice is taking place, and our so-called advanced Western civilization that pride itself on advocacy of human rights is staying silent and not saying anything at all. And in actuality, our Western governments are now debating that how many more $1 billion should be funded to fuel the war that is happening in the Middle East. Regarding the growing conflict and the potential solution towards peace, His Holiness, the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, has been guiding us on day-to-day basis, especially on his Friday sermon, on how to tackle this and how to bring world peace. On October 13, when these news broke out of this war, he said, "At this time, I would like to make an appeal for prayers relating to the conditions of the world today, that over the past few days, the war between Hamas and Israel have been ongoing, due to which civilians on both sides, including women, children and the elderly, are being killed or have already been killed without any distinction. Then even in times of war, Islam does not permit the killing of women, innocent people, or the elderly, or anyone that is not engaged in any type of fighting. This is something which the Holy Prophet of Islam has given us at a very clear understanding in his teachings. Not only that, for any religious members and mosques, churches, cloisters, all of these places of worship and all of these places where people seek refuge should not be touched at all. For example, hospitals, schools, buildings where people are taking refuge. Then the teaching of the people of the book also state that such killings are not permitted. If these actions of Muslims were deemed wrong, then these people should reflect on their own conduct as well. In any case, we must continue to fervently pray to build an everlasting peace. To provide some extent, from reports we have learned that 10,000s of soldiers have died in the Ukraine-Russian aggression. And over the near 2-year period, the number of civilians' deaths in Ukraine has only been 10,000. But in the past 3 months, the Israel-Gaza aggression has been more than tripled currently. Then upon further analysis, it would seem that major powers are bent on fanning the flames of war rather than try to put this flame out. Everyone is simply concerned with their own vested political interest. The average person cannot even fathom the harmful consequences of the war that will result from these injustices. However, all the major powers are aware of the grave consequences. Yet, despite this, there is no attention given towards establishing justice. Thus, Muslim nations at the very least should come to their senses. They should set aside their differences and establish unity. Allah has given the following commandments to the Muslims in the Holy Quran, which is mentioned in chapter 3, verse 65, that come to a word equal between us and you. And this very program that we are doing today is based upon this principle, that we all come to an understanding and come to the reason and focus on the unity of God. The Muslim must also ponder over this and establish their unity. This is the only way to eradicate disorder from the world. They should unite and raise a resounding voice for the fulfillment of the requirements of justice and fulfilling the rights of the oppressed, wherever they may be, anywhere around the world. If they unite as one, then there will also be a voice which will be louder and more appealing to the other members. Otherwise, these Muslim governments will also be responsible for the innocent lives that are happening around the world. Furthermore, the worldwide head of the Ahmadi Muslim community further states that the non-Muslim world knows that there is no unity among the Muslims. Instead, Muslims are intent on killing other Muslims. Just recently, a few days ago, we see that Iran and Pakistan are getting heated for no reason. And there have already been news reports that bombing have been occurred in those countries. So Muslims are also killing other Muslims for not for the sake of religion, but for their own vested and political interest. And a worldwide head of the Muslim community continues to call for a ceasefire in the Middle East, and not only that, but also calls for the Muslims to unite as one and become one and unite in one, so that we can also use this voice. And this can only be happen when they realize the Imam of the age, when they realize the Messiah of the latter day in the person of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian has appeared. Then it says that when the Muslim world and when the Western leaders look at this, and they say that if Muslims are killing other Muslims, then let it be so. Why should we interfere? And they somehow have this hatred and animosity against the Muslim world, that they let this fighting continue on. Then we say that the Muslim world, that they need to stop all of these injustices and focus on the true principle of teaching of Islam and the examples laid out to us by the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him. His Holiness also stated that the leaders of the Western nations do not wish to act with justice regarding this situation, nor do they have the courage to speak up. We should not get caught up in any of these debates that who's right or who's wrong, or who has good leaders and who doesn't have good leaders. But we should focus that all of these conversations are futile. But the main focus that we should bring to attention is that how soon can we call for a ceasefire? How soon can we save those innocent lives that are continue to happen on a day-to-day basis? Therefore, if world leaders do not courageously strive for a ceasefire, they are also responsible for taking the world towards destruction. You are seeing some Western leaders speaking against the further actions of Israel on Gaza, but it is said that the raising of these voices is not coming because of care for humanity or for the Muslim world or for the innocent lives in general, but rather that elections are on the horizons and they are seeing a rise in the voice of youth raising the discomfort and disunity among the world. So instead of this, they are seeing that because of their own political interest that they have, they few upon this and then see this and then go on and then continue to do what all world leaders do. Then His Holiness said that along with prayers, which is a key thing, we should continue, that everyone should strive and create an atmosphere of spreading the message that injustices must be brought to an end. This is why we are gathered here for today. This is true courage, and this is the standard according to the commandments of Allah the Almighty mentioned in the Holy Quran. Then it is also stated that Israel said that they will retaliate after Hamas attacked their people. However, now this retaliation have crossed all limits and all bounds. Multiple more Palestinian lives have been lost as compared to the numbers of Israeli lives, which according to the latest report is almost 20 times more than what is being reported on the other side. Now, if they wish to end Hamas, as they claim, then they should fight them and fight those who are fighting you. Why bring innocent people, innocent lives and children and elderly people in this war? This is where the claims of governments of fulfilling the rights of people and following the rules of war falter and come to an end. As I mentioned before, the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community said that these are very dangerous and perilous times that we are going through. That said that only becoming more dangerous day by day. The Western media overemphasizes the reports of one side and fittingly mentions the other side. Justice would dictate that the entire situation be presented and let the world decide for what is just and what is wrong, and if there is a reason to go to war. Then we see that UN nation has been adopted for the sake of upholding the rights of individuals. But we know that UN nation has also become more only as a formality, where even within the members have started to resign, and even high officials in the USA have started to resign because they see the flaw in the system, that they have only one interest and the individuals have their own political agenda, and that is what they're pushing for. The double standards and hypocrisy is clearly visible in the statements and the remarks of the UN General. So therefore, it is only the true everlasting peace of justice and the guidance for a world leader to come together and realize their responsibilities, and of course, being on the statement of peace and coming together, we can end the atrocities in the Middle East or anywhere else around the world. So with these, I hope and pray that may Allah Ta'ala allow us, and especially the world leaders and faith groups over here that are here, that they can take on this message to their individuals, and we can all play our key role in establishing world peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Imran Bhatti. I'd like to request respected Regional Amir Sahib to come to the front to present our token of appreciation to the guests.
Thank you very much for the awesome job. Thank you, Mr. Borowski.
Thank you.
Long time friend, you know.
I made it for you, mate.
Thank you very much.
No disrespect as the intended, just bad planning on my part, but if you travel.
No, that's okay. Sometimes unexpected even on a Sunday.
Thank you. So now for concluding remarks, I'd like to request Mr. Tahir Guman, who was our Western Canada Youth Leader for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. Good afternoon. I want to start off by thanking our panelists and our local MLA for taking the time out and sharing their insights into the tragic situation unfolding in the Middle East. The purpose of this program was to bring attention to the global humanitarian crisis and create awareness about the critical need for peace. When resolving a dispute, above all, it is important to act with justice, which is why the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association felt the need to create a platform to bring people together of different backgrounds with the common goal of establishing peace. It is my hope, along with all the organizers, that everyone can take something valuable from this event. With that, I would like to thank all the volunteers for making this event possible. Lastly, I would like to thank all the guests in attendance for coming out, and hope that you can take something away and become ambassadors of peace within the community. May God grant us the opportunity to witness global peace and security. Amen. So in the end, it is our tradition that we conclude all of our programs with a silent prayer, where we raise our hands to pray. All of you are welcome to join however you feel comfortable. Please join me in silent prayer. Ameen. Okay. So in the end, we have refreshments arranged in the dining hall. The volunteers will come get you, and if you can have a group photo with the panelists and also Mr. Ian Patton, if you can also join us in the front along with our regional president, Rizwan Pirzada side.
Okay. Oh, so you want us to...
You want to sit? Okay. All right. Where are we looking? Anywhere? Okay.